Ladies and gentlemen, ladies, whether driving a Pinto or driving a Mercedes, stop with what you're doing, stop with what you're saying, sit down and stop with what you're playing, and that's right. I'm back with a vengeance. I'm back on YouTube, and you know what? It's been a good minute. It's been a good while, and I know because I've had some people, and not a whole boatload, but I've had some people say to me, "Hey, Chris, your YouTube thing is actually pretty cool, so why don't you put some more content out?" And you know what? I'm thinking to myself, it's not a bad idea. It is not a bad idea whatsoever, so that's what I'm going to start doing. Hopefully, like at least a couple videos a month, because I know that could benefit people greatly by hopefully getting their minds off the chaotic things of this world. But unfortunately, with this video, I'm going to be speaking about things that are somewhat chaotic, and I just want to say from a recent post that I did on Facebook where I was speaking about people needing to step up, step out, and let their voices be heard, okay? There's a lot of people that were misinterpreting my words. There's a lot of people that were thinking that I am a severe anti-Trumper, okay? And that's not the case whatsoever. Just to let people know that my core message was to let people know that, you know what? Before we are Republicans, before we're Democrats, we are children of God and we are Americans first, okay? We need to put that into perspective. And I just want to let people know that it's so awesome. It's so amazing the fact that there's millions upon millions of people that are voting right now. There's millions upon millions of people letting their voices be heard, because you know what? It's sad though that it took this long for people to realize that they need to step up, step out, and let their voices be heard. Because you know what? Regardless of who you're voting for, the fact that you're getting up, the fact that you're letting your voice be heard, that is awesome, and that is something that we can all support. That's something that we can all rally, and we can all be in agreement with. And I'm super duper for that. And you know what? Something that I've been thinking about, something that God's been putting on my heart is that, you know, with our country, before this division, like within the past decade, okay, because let's be honest here, between the Trump administration and between the Obama administration, this has been the most divisive decade in the history of our nation. Okay, scratch that. It might not be in the history of our nation, but at least like within my lifetime. And I just want to say that back in the day, you know, like my dad would tell me stories, like my grandpa would tell me stories, that back in the day, people could talk things like politics and people could talk things like faith, and they could have differing views and they could still get along, and they could still put their difference to the side, and they could still be family, be friends, and they could still care for each other. But seemingly within this time, within this era, within this generation, unless you side with a particular group, then you are a no good sack of garbage. And it really upsets me, because you know what? What's wrong with having a difference in opinion? Because you know what? There's a reason why people feel the way they feel, okay? And whether it's the way that they were raised, whether it's the environment they grew up in, there's a reason why people feel the way they feel. Because I know for me that I'm a very liberal person, and that's simply due to the fact of where my mom and dad raised me, how they raised me, and how I see things. So growing up in Baltimore City, that had a massive influence on how I see the world and how I feel towards things, especially when it comes to race issues. Because I feel like, you know what, every race, regardless, they deserve equal opportunity within our country. But unfortunately, recently, due to certain groups, you got groups like QAnon, you got groups like the Black Lives Matter, you got groups like you got like the MAGA crowd. With all due respect, they are veiling, not all of them, but a good portion, they're veiling their true feelings towards minorities. And by supporting things like laws that are going to suppress minorities from being able to vote or get home loans or do so many other things, that's a form of racism right there. And whether you realize that or not, that's the God honest truth. Then you have groups like Black Lives Matter. With all due respect, they're singling out a particular group of people, and their core message is to bring awareness to things like police brutality. But unfortunately, the message has been hijacked and it's become a brand. And the core message has been lost in translation. And now, with all due respect, the brand, it's useless. The message is useless. And now it's basically either people treating it as it's African Americans versus the rest of the world. And you know what? This goes out to everybody, right? Whether you're black, white, brown, it doesn't matter. We are all brothers, we are all sisters, and we are all children of God. And we need to recognize that, you know what? Whenever somebody is struggling and whenever somebody is going through a hardship, you know what? We don't need to judge them. We need to help them. And we need to understand that they're going through this for a reason. Why are they going through it? You know, sit down with the person, even if you don't agree with them, and be like, hey, you know, why do you feel the way you feel? I mean, and just try to understand. You know, so like the whole thing, like with Black Lives Matter, the whole thing like with QAnon, like with the conspiracy theories and all the bullshit, like with people saying, oh, all the liberals are pedophiles and this and that and da da da. I'm sorry. Just because you post something doesn't mean that it's true. Because, hell, there's people that start websites and they post nonsensical bullshit, and just because they post something doesn't mean that it's factual. And people need to get that through their head. Please, before you post something, before you buy into an ideology, do your research. Think. And, you know, make sure that the sources that you're getting your views from, that they're backed up with facts. Because these conspiracy theorists, man, it has gotten out of control. And, you know, because I get it. You got people, they want to feel loved, they want to feel accepted, so they cling to something like that. The people that support like the Black Lives Matter, like they cling to that. The people that are like the thin blue line thing, like the big huge cop supporters, they cling to that. And you know what? This division, it's doing nothing for our nation. This division, it is disgusting. This division, it needs to stop. We need to realize that God gives us these unique experiences. God gives us these particular views so we can share them with the world. And I'm not talking about like the ignorant racist views, because you know what? That's bullshit and that needs to stop. But God lets us experience certain things. God lets us have these perspectives so we can share them with the world, and so we can strengthen one another, not divide. Let's let our differences unite, not divide. Because you know what? It's a sad state of affairs right now. Whenever you have a leader, with all due respect, yes, I do respect the position of the president, but the fact is that you have people that would literally die for this man, because he is someone that is so controlling and so wanting love and so wanting attention that he's willing to sell out his own people. He's willing to let people suffer. He's willing to just do so many negative things just to feel loved and just to feel accepted. Why do you think the man has 40,000 rallies? It's not to get his message across to help others. It's to boost his own ego. It's for people to pat him on the back saying, "Oh, you're so awesome, you're so great," when in fact he can't even look in the mirror. He's a prime example of money doesn't buy happiness. And people, you know that I voted for Biden, and I'm very open and I'm very honest. But that doesn't mean that I am someone that's going to bash someone with differing views, because you know what I'm going to do is sit down with people like with different views and be like, you know what, why do you feel that way? What experiences have you gone through that's molded you to feel the way that you feel? So, people, step back, step out, and think, why do people feel the way they feel? What has molded their perspective? What has molded their view? And before you pass judgment, try to understand that. Try to comprehend that fact. And once we do that, this country would be so much better off. And I'm not saying things are going to be like 1,000% better with Biden, because for a fact, I don't know. But I do know, when it comes to the way people view us, they see us as a laughingstock. They see us as a punchline. And you know what? You can't. We can't do this no more. And the fact that we're denying things like global warming, the fact that we are pretending that COVID doesn't exist, even though over 200,000 people have passed away from this, it is time to fix things. You can't ignore them. Just because you don't acknowledge it doesn't mean that it's not there. And that's where we're at right now, ladies and gentlemen. So please, when it comes to things like voting, let your voice be heard. Step up, step out, and vote. And to the people out there that don't vote, don't come crying to me. Don't come crying to a Trump supporter. Don't come crying to anybody else whenever you're criticizing others, because you know what? You forfeited that right. You forfeited the right that so many men and so many women sacrificed for. And many, many died just to give you that right, because in over 2/3 of the world, you can't vote. You can't. You have to deal with who's been put in that position, and guess what? Sorry. So please, ladies and gentlemen, let's try to understand each other's differences, why we feel the way we feel. Let's embrace them. As long as they are something that can add and something that's positive, let's add it to this wonderful nation, this wonderful experiment called democracy that we are in. Because you know what? Back in the day, whenever you had people from differing nations come over here to try to better themselves, we embraced that, we welcomed that, because you know what? We loved the fact that we lived in such a massive melting pot, because we recognized that every single person that came in, they had the potential to add something great to this nation. And they had their differences with how they saw things, and we embraced that. Let's do that again, ladies and gentlemen. Let's embrace the differences of others and see how it could help you grow personally, me grow personally, and see how it can make this country better. This divisiveness, it needs to stop. This anger, it needs to stop. This trying to bring the country back to like the 1950s, where minorities and women were treated like second-class citizens, it needs to stop, because that time, it's come and gone. Those minorities, whether you choose to accept it or not, those women, those minorities, they are your brothers, they are your sisters. Those women, those are your sisters. Those are the ones that, hell, without women, we wouldn't be here. So the fact that we are trying to tell women what to do with their bodies, it's disgusting, quite frankly, because you know what? That's like me trying to tell a rocket scientist how to build a rocket. when in fact I have no freaking idea. So the fact that you have old white men within Congress or within like Washington trying to tell women what they can do like with their reproductive rights, it's a fucking joke. So please, we need to embrace our differences. We need to realize that we add so much to this, and we need to respect our differences. So when it comes to Trump supporters, I, I love you guys. I do. When it comes to Sanders supporters, I love you guys. I do. And when it comes to anybody else that you guys might support, I love you guys. Because you know what? We are family first. We are children of God first. We are Americans first. And then party second. And think about it from this perspective. We're so spoiled and so bored like with our lives because we're so spoiled that we can pretty much just bitch, moan, and argue just for the hell of it. While you have people in third world countries wondering where they can get clean water. And they gotta walk miles just to get clean water. And yet we complain over the stupidest things. Hashtag first world issues.